Good afternoon. My name is Gino Faralloni. Okay, first of all, I have to say that I'm a Rotarian. The reason I'm saying this, no matter where I go, they seem to know me. I go in 5 clubs a week, okay? And also, I dance for charity. So this station is going to show you Gino dancing for charity with 8 lovely lady. And also, I was called, a friend of mine, Jim McMahon, right?
Jay McMahon.
Jay McMahon. He wanted to be in TV because I asked him many times, and he finally found the time to come. And he's going to tell me a story. Thank you.
Hey,
Go
Gino.
ahead.
Well, first of all, Gino, I want to thank you very much for inviting me on. As you know, I ran for Attorney General for Massachusetts in the last election, November of 2018. And I worked hard. There was a lot of good candidates running on the Republican side. There was Jeff Deal running for U.S. Senate, and he ran hard. There was me running for Massachusetts Attorney General. And we had Charlie Baker, who was running for re-election for governor.
Correct.
And I had to go through the convention process, which was in April of 2016. And I won the delegates there. It was about 61, 62 to 30, around 38, 37% that way. I won those delegates. I forgot what the actual count was, but that was the percentages of it. And it was pretty good. It was a pretty good win. A lot of people said going into the convention I was the underdog. Maybe I was, I'm not sure. A lot of people said they were going to vote for me going in there. And, well, apparently the ones who said they were going to did. So then I went through a primary, and the primary in September of 2018 was about the same, 61, 62% to 38%, something like that. I think it was actually a little higher. It was more like 2/3 to 1/3. And my Republican opponent was a nice guy, good Republican, and had some good issues, but apparently I resonated more to the Republican voters than he did. And so I won the primary. And I went up against Maura Healey. Now, a lot of people said, you know, how you expect to win against Maura Healey? And I said, on the issues. That's how I'm going to win against her, on the issues. People don't seem to realize we got an opiate crisis going here in Massachusetts. We got people dying in droves, and it seems like no one was doing anything about it. And I can talk about this subject. I lost my oldest son to the opiate crisis. So my point is, there can be something done for the opiate crisis. There can be. It's as if the government officials don't know what to do.
Yes.
But I had a solid plan. And the reason why I knew that my solid plan would work for rehabilitation is because I had the #1 board-certified opiate rehabilitative physician in the world on my task force. Yeah. And he has his the government rehabilitation programs are a 99% failure, but the private pays have a 87% success rate.
Successful.
I'm telling you, 87% of the people that go through. So I sarcastically asked him, I said, what do you do with the other, if you got an 87%, what do you do with the other 13% that don't make it?
Right.
He said, when they go through the program on the first time, and they're part of that 13%, we recycle them through, and they become part of the 87%. So I'm saying, you mean to tell me that the people that go through your program only have to go through at best twice? And he said, the vast majority who don't make it the first time, which is the 13%.
They give them a chance.
They make it on the second time. He said, every once in a while, you'll have someone that they got to go through it again.
Right.
And it's just how deep that opiate hold has on them. Now, the government programs, I've been visiting all kinds of groups that deal with wanting to see something done with opiate addicts. Usually, they're mothers or wives or family members who have either lost someone to the opiates,
Right, right.
or someone who's trying to go into recovery now.
Right.
And I remember asking them how many times, most of them went through government rehabilitative programs. And I said, okay, so how many people here have a loved one that has gone through an opiate rehabilitation program, say, a few times, and still going in? And there was, nobody raised their hand.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, let's say how many have done it like up to 5 times? A couple of hands went up. And I'm thinking, maybe that's too high.
Wow.
But I thought I'd go even higher. And I said, how about 10 times? A few more hands went up. I said, how about 12 or more? The rest of the hands all went up.
Oh
So I
my
started going around the room asking them. And some of the people said, they would say, I said, how many times? And somebody would say, 18 times. I said,
Oh my
18?
God.
How many times? 22. How many times? 25. I went to another guy, pointed out to him. I said, how many times? He goes, 30. And she's gonna fail in this one too. I said, how do you know that? She says, because it's the same program and it doesn't work. So I said,
change it.
Yeah. So I said, why do you send your children to these programs if you know they don't work? And one guy stood up in the corner here and he said, because there's no other programs that we can send them to.
But you can provide one.
No question about it. No question about it. We can provide a successful program. So I banged away at that. That was my major issue about we can do something. Now, has any government official actually done anything other than appropriate money for failing programs? Has any government? Yeah, well, Governor Baker.
Yes.
He has caused the state to supply Narcan to all the first responders.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to tell you what Narcan does. I'm glad for it.
Yes.
Because it gives somebody a second chance.
Correct.
What it does is it keeps them from dying.
Right.
If the first responders can get there in time.
Right.
But here's what we're finding out. The first responders get there, hit him with Narcan, they save his life.
Yeah.
They get called another week, same guy, hit him again. They get called third time, they didn't get there in time, he's already dead. So the point is, it only prolonging. It doesn't rehabilitate anybody.
Right,
it just saves them from dying if they get there in time.
So save them and put them on a program.
Listen, I was advocating for an involuntary program, and I'll tell you why. The opiate addict thinks much differently than a rational human being. People will say, how can that addict sell his mother or all his grandmother's jewelry for just another hit of heroin or whatever? How can he do that? He doesn't think in that regard. His mind is all screwed up.
How fast I can get up.
All he's thinking
Yeah.
is the next hit.
The next hit.
Later on, when he goes through a program, he realizes what he done, and he's remorseful and all that, and all the things that you would normally be, but they're not thinking correctly. So if they're not thinking correctly, they don't know they need to be rehabilitated. But if you take an opiate addict and forcibly put him into rehabilitation, it won't be long before he starts thinking correctly, and he would thank his family and the government and the courts and whoever who put him in a program. So what I was thinking of doing is, you can't force people against their will, but this is what you can do. Police come upon an individual, and they find him, either one car accident, he cracks and smashes into a telephone pole because he's high on opiates. They find him. They find paraphernalia, syringes or whatever, some opiate right there, some heroin, bags of heroin or whatever. They arrest the guy. Before criminal process begins, by them taking him somewhere to be arraigned, you could always delay that.
Yeah, yeah.
I was going to have a form, and I was going to have the police department say, listen, just letting you know, we can go through with this prosecution, or we can withhold the prosecution
Until it gets better.
till you go through a program.
Right,
and if
right,
you
yeah.
go through the program, the Attorney General has a program that if you go through and successfully complete it, they will end the prosecution. as long as there's no deaths or any maiming or
Yeah,
something done, and if there's insurance, they take care of the problem. In other words, the crime, the only victim of the crime has to be the opiate addict,
Right.
and not somebody else.
Right.
So I would institute a program like that. And then when they successfully go through, if they don't, if they drop out of the program, well, then we institute the criminal proceedings, and then when he's at the House of Correction, he's a captive audience.
He stayed there and then he comes out, he
Then-
goes back to opiates.
Well, we're going to do these programs in the House of Correction
Right.
too. So
Good.
either way, we got them.
Good.
And that way we clean up the problem.
Yeah,
but what
yeah.
we really do, Gino, we give them their lives back.
Right, right.
We
right.
give them their lives
If they
back.
behave, their prosecution will probably be eliminated to a certain period of time.
Absolutely. Eliminate it. Give him a dismissal. Let him start life again.
Right,
Get him
right.
through the programs.
Right.
Give him his life back. He'll never go back. He or she will never go back to that life if they're cleaned up all the way through. Not a phony program, a real program. And at the end of it, big graduation exercise, somebody, big official comes in, either the
Yeah.
Attorney General, the
Yeah.
Governor, Lieutenant Governor, somebody comes in and says congratulations
Congratulations.
and make a big deal about it and introduce them back into society.
Right, right.
We can save the lives of opiate
Not
addicts.
only one, but many, many, many lives.
I'm telling you, thousands.
Yes.
They'll live and they'll go on to a productive life again.
right, right.
Now listen, it's worth doing that. It's better
I
to send
agree.
them through a private pay program once than 30 times through a government program with no results
And
or
also,
bad results.
they also send him to jail or whatever. What he's going to do? He go stay there for 30 days and he come out, he's going to do the same thing over.
I'd rather
Yeah,
use
yes.
a little bit of taxpayers'
Yes,
money
yes.
and put them through a rehab program
Right.
that works
Then put him something else that's going to cost more money.
because he's going to be a productive taxpayer
Right,
when he
right.
gets out.
Correct,
He or she
correct.
comes out, they'll be a productive taxpayer. So
I can
that-
see why
that's the
800,000 people voted for you.
800,000.
Yes.
I got a funny story to tell you about that.
800,000 people from
800,000.
Massachusetts voted for this gentleman
They
because
did.
I had him on TV before. It is so emotional because it happened to his family, and it hurts. And he wants to prevent that happen to other family. That is the point that he's trying to make to me. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, so election day comes along, and we had a gathering of our supporters at the Mezzaluna restaurant in Buzzards Bay. Okay, it was.
I almost made it.
You would have loved it, did
I
you?
would have almost made
the
it.
Mezzaluna, the best Italian restaurant in southeastern Massachusetts. I know some of the restaurants would take exception to that, but
We'll go next time. You will be there. I'll be there next time.
but we absolutely love it, and I go out there often. Of course, I grew up with the family, so that helps.
Right.
So anyhow, we have it. We're looking at the election returns. In some areas where we didn't expect to do as well, we were satisfied with the results. But then we started, as the night went on, we started saying, well, it's not looking as good. Western Massachusetts came out well for us, but not well enough. Not to take the gap from like Boston and elsewhere.
Right.
So I congratulated my opponent and went home that night. And my wife and I were talking about it. And we said, look, we got a lot to think about. So we'll think about it, right? So the next morning I wake up and I nudge her and I said, hey, I know what we could do different next time.
You didn't wait too long, did you?
It was in me. I had plenty of fight left.
You gotta get out of it.
I
out
had
of your system.
plenty of fight left.
Yes,
So
yes.
I said to her,
But
I
you're
said,
doing this not only for yourself. You're doing this to help and save people.
let me tell you something. There is corruption in the Attorney General's office even today. Well, first of all, let's talk about the
bad.
top.
Too
Let's
bad.
talk about Maura Healey. Where is she now? Well, within the last couple of weeks, she flew down to Tijuana, Mexico. Now, I don't begrudge anybody of their vacation, but she's not on vacation.
Yeah.
She's down there, and she's helping illegals fill out paperwork to sue the Trump administration. Now, I'm going to tell you something. She's bragging about it because it was on a video. She did a video. She put out a video saying that's what she's doing. She didn't call them illegals. She said she called them immigrants trying to get into the United States. Now, you might say, well, then how can you say they're illegals? Because they weren't Mexican citizens. They got into Mexico, and now they're coming up through. So it's absolute crazy. She wants to sue the Trump administration. I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure the citizens of Massachusetts voted to send her down there to be a political advocate. I mean, that's a hell of a lot of money to pay a political advocate. And she's down there, and she's on our dime. Now, if she's on vacation, I wouldn't begrudge her a vacation. People need to take vacations, but that's not what it's down there. Listen, less than 1 month before the election, and it did make it all the newspapers, but they didn't play it up, I thought, as much as they should. The Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, the highest court in our land, in Boston,
Yep.
they came out with a decision. And the decision happened to stem from the scandal that went in the drug lab, in the Massachusetts State Drug Lab
I remember
in
that.
Amherst.
I remember
Now,
that.
we have 2 drug labs, and they're both out of control. The first one, the eastern one, it's here in the eastern part of Massachusetts. And that's the one with Annie Dukin. Remember Annie Dukin? If a prosecutor smiled to Annie Dukin and said, can I have a certificate on this bag of sugar? She says, what do you want to call it? She just wrote it out and gave him the certificate, and there it was. That's the testing. You said it, it was done. If you smiled at Annie, she helped you out. Poor Annie went to jail. We also have a crime lab in Western Massachusetts at Amherst. And they happen to have a chemical analysis person, analyst, who worked there, and her name was Sonia Farak. Sonia, there's several tests that you have to go through when the police bring in evidence to put a certificate. Well, Sonia did all those tests, and she would write the certificate, but she did one more test. That's good stuff. And she would take the stuff out, and she would fill it with starch, sugar, flour, or even, they said, dishwashing detergent, the powder kind, or the soap that goes for washing clothes. And she would fill it up with that, but there'd be a certificate on it, which meant whatever was in the bag beforehand was good stuff, and she took it home. And they caught her with it. Well, the problem with the Attorney General's office is the Attorney General's office knew that this was going on a lot longer than they let the court know. See, the court wanted to know, and the court suspected, because the defense attorney suspected, the AG is not telling the truth here. Or I should say the AG's office. Yeah. Maura Healey was kind of quiet on it, but it was her 2 lieutenants.
Yeah.
They had a policy to carry out and put this false narrative out there into the courts.
Wow.
And so a judge named Richard Carey, Superior Court judge in Western Massachusetts in Springfield, did an inquest, about 6 days of court hearings, and he made some findings. And those findings were appealed, so they went up to the Supreme Judicial Court, and the Supreme Judicial Court made that decision, and it was called the Committee of Public Counsel Services versus the Attorney General for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The decision date was October 11, 2018, so it was less than a month before the election.
Oh my God.
Here's what the judge, this is what the court said about prosecutors in your Attorney General's office, because you pay for this person and you pay for this office. 250 plus lawyers there.
Wow.
And this is what it said. Those prosecutors, they acted, had egregious prosecutorial misconduct.
Wow.
They committed fraud upon the court. They lacked moral compass. Their conduct was reprehensible and magnified by the fact that it was not limited to an isolated incident, but rather to a series of calculated misrepresentations. The ramifications from their misconduct are nothing short of systemic. In other words, it permeates the whole office. The office is thoroughly corrupt by this policy.
Wow.
And it mentions 2 of her top lieutenants, mentions them by name. So because it mentions him by name, it's public record. So I'll mention it. Ann Kazmarek and Chris Foster. Mentions both those two people.
Wow.
Now, you would think that if the top court in the land, in the Commonwealth, the top court, Supreme Court of Massachusetts, they call it the Supreme Judicial Court, you would think that if they said this about a lawyer, egregious prosecutorial misconduct, fraud upon the court, lack of moral conduct, their actions and conduct are reprehensible, you would think that those lawyers would be in jail.
They're not.
There's no other place to put them. You would think they'd be in jail. Nope, not in this case. You would think that they would at least be disbarred. That the Board of Bar Overseers would say, hey, we can't have this. Let me tell you what happened in this case.
Wow.
19,000 drug cases, drug trafficking thugs that were in jail, in the state prison system, were told, get out of here.
Wow.
Your case was dismissed, get out of here. Because the Supreme Court had no faith in those convictions, even those who admitted to it. They had no faith in those convictions because of the scandal at the drug lab. And so, the case against the Attorney General's office, those lawyers who perpetrated this fraud upon the court, they didn't go to jail and they weren't disbarred. So you would think they would at least be fired from the Attorney General's office.
Nothing.
Nope, not here in Massachusetts. These two, they were promoted. They went from 5-figure incomes to a 6-figure income on your dime.
Wow.
That's corruption to the hilt.
What a story.
They still work for the state government, and they are making 6-figure incomes today. So that is incredible here in Massachusetts. Unbelievable.
So this is why you're running again.
I've got to. Somebody's got to clean this up. The word is going to get out. Things are getting worse and worse.
So
I mean, come on. People are still dying. I think Maura Healey is hoping that the opiate crisis would just die away. Well, I'll tell you what, people are dying, that's for sure. Now, I know, especially when they kicked the doors open of 19,000 jail cells and told those people get out. Some of those people were saying, wait a minute, why are we leaving? I'm not even up for parole yet. You're done.
Wow.
The case is over. It's been dismissed. The people in prison didn't even know that.
Wow.
All they knew is they're grabbing their stuff and they're leaving before somebody changes their mind.
Wow.
19,000. You know, that number is so large, you can't fathom that. Because if we had said 10 of them have been overturned, everybody would say, oh, that's terrible. 10 people, who are engaging in this. But when you say 19,000, it's too big. The number's too big. It's like saying millions.
Mamma mia.
19,000 people told to get out. Now, I always knew that the liberals were, and especially Maura Healey, was interested in prison reform because she did say that the Massachusetts sentencing guidelines are too harsh. I say they're not harsh enough. But I know she's big on prison reform, but I didn't know they were going to do it this way.
Wow. See, if you were in that chair, you would have said, let's do the other way. So they have a chance to see somebody else. God willing, it all depends how the people will feel about you.
Well, I'll tell you
now,
what.
when is the next election?
Well, let me tell you, just the next election is about 3.5 years from now. So we got a while to go. I got time to do some more fundraising. But let me say this: after the election day on the next one, the day after the election, somebody from Western Massachusetts called me. He says, "Hey Jay, how you doing?" And I said, "Well, after losing 70 to 30, meaning percentage, 70 to 30%, I said I think I'm doing all right." The guy goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "What do you mean? What do I mean? Didn't you get the election results?" And he goes, "I did. You're not thinking straight." And I said, "Not thinking straight? All right, I'll buy. What are you talking about?" He goes, "Jay, 800,000 people voted for you. That means they understood the message, they latched onto it, they wanted you as their guy, and they went into that voting booth and threw the lever for you. So that means they're on your side, and they're going to stick with you. You're on a roll."
Yeah,
I thought to
right.
myself,
He's right.
He's right. He is right.
He is right.
So we're going to keep going. He also said this, and other people told me it too. If each one of those 800,000 people just told and convinced one other person that didn't vote for me, I win in a landslide the next time.
I won't be surprised.
So I'm going on with it. I'm going to keep on with it. And as you know, there's a new Massachusetts State Republican chairman, guy named Jim Lyons.
I met him.
Great man. I love the guy dearly. He ran for
State representative.
yeah, he ran for re-election. He had been in there for about 3 or 4 election cycles.
Right.
Actually, yeah, he's been in for eight years, and he lost this time because the Democrats put a lot of money in on his unknown opponent, and he lost by a couple of votes, but he decided to run for the chairmanship, and he got it.
Of the committee, yes.
Great guy, great guy.
I met him.
So
I will have him to come here if he.
Oh, have him on.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. He's got a good perspective on things. Knows the issues well, and most of us, Jeff Deal and myself, we didn't get a whole lot of help from the Massachusetts GOP, but Jim is going to change all that.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah. So,
I heard about that.
So I've been having rallies throughout the state, and they're coming up. We're forming the next one shortly. It'll be in Essex County.
Oh, good.
And, we haven't got the dates yet, but
You send me
your buddy and my buddy Bob
send me
has some
information.
information. I will. I'll let you know when it is.
Yeah, that's
We'll come
really
on, I'll come on the air here. We'll promote it.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Now, I don't want you to get too excited. I know you speak from the heart. I just want to relax, because when it's time for you to run again, you relax, and then you can get your emotion in gear again. But right now, I want you just to relax, okay? Because you're only trying to help people. And there's very few people that are that emotional to trying to help people.
But right after the election, my wife and I took a vacation, went down to St. Thomas.
Yes.
We love to take vacations down there.
Good, good.
And it was a great vacation.
Yeah.
We sat out on the beach. We thought about things. We talked about things.
She encouraged you to say.
Oh yeah, she was great. She was great. We were talking about things that, in hindsight, and you only learn in hindsight.
Yeah.
Where are some of the areas we should be targeting that we didn't target? And there's no question about it. If you get 800,000 votes in Massachusetts, there's only 400,000 Republicans. So if all of them voted for me, there's another 400,000 of unenrolled that voted for me, Democrats and unenrolled. And so I've got to target more of those people.
Yeah, you will.
And
You
we
will. With your charm, but keep smiling. Promise me. Don't get too upset. Just keep. People will see you. They will hear from from what you're saying, and they will say, I think we should give him a chance.
One guy said about that. He says, Jay, your speeches, you're always serious in your speeches. And I said, you should try to be a little more funny because you're a funny guy. And I said, believe me.
Not this time.
Well, I try to be funny, but let me tell you something. It's hard to be funny about people dying in the streets.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
I know. Yeah,
it's a life or death job. It requires some serious thought and some proper planning, and not misplaced focus like our Attorney General. We have problems here in the state. She's down in Tijuana helping illegals get into the country or sue the Trump administration. How nutty is that?
Nothing's going to happen. Not to worry. They're not going to get nothing. All right?
Right.
I want you to be happy. When you see your wife, you give a big hug and say, Annie, thank you so much for supporting me.
She's great.
Okay? And then you said, who told you that? So that guy's name is Gino from Venice.
Gino's Gino.
Gino
from Venice.
You'll be okay. You'll be okay. I really appreciate you coming.
I do. This was fun.
Yeah.
I remember the last time being here, and I loved it.
And I want you to come back, and we go to Westford.
We'll do it.
You tell me what day, what time, and I'll make an arrangement for you.
We will do it.
All right? I think we did pretty good. God bless you.
Thank you, Gino.
Say hello to your wife for me, and keep smiling. Okay?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry about your son.
Oh, thank you.